I'm at the etrailer, and today we're talking about the Yakima Roof Rack on top of our 2022 Honda CR-V. Now this is going to be a great option if you're going on a trip and you need to store some extra luggage because maybe you have some friends and family with you and you can't put it all inside your vehicle, especially if you already have a hitch that's being used by either a trailer or something else, or you don't have a hitch at all. And it's really going to be good if you have any longer items that you can't fit into the back of your vehicle anyways. It's important you know what kind of roof you have. So a way you can check is right now we do have a naked roof, and that means we're not going to have any type of rail on top. You can also get this vehicle with flush rails, and that's going to be something you'll be able to notice because you can get your hands around that. And to make sure you're getting the right kit for you, you can plug in your vehicle's information into our website to find the correct fit for you. Speaking of the kit, up top, we're going to have our 50-inch Jetstream crossbars. And how that's going to work is we're going to have this taper edge to it. And with it being thicker in the front and thinner in the back, that's going to make it more aerodynamic to help reduce that wind drag and that wind noise. Another thing that's going to help reduce wind noise is going to be this weather strip at the very top. This is actually going to be built in, and a lot of times with other racks, you actually have to cut these down to size to work around your gear. With this, you don't have to do that at all. And that T-channel is going to allow you to mount other accessories up here, anything like ski carriers that you want closer to you because a lot of clamps won't be able to work around the tower being right here. And below that, we're going to have our towers. And what's really unique about the kit we have today is the tower allows us to really adjust for our roof. And you'll see a little bit more of that in our install portion of the video later, but as you can see, this front area is a lot lower than the rear. So if we weren't able to adjust for that, then we wouldn't really get that good of a fit for our gear. And beneath that, we're going to have our actual fit kit. And that's what's going to allow this to work with our naked roof. And that's just going to grab onto our gutter, right in our door hinge, and really giving us this secure fit. And with this rubber padding underneath it, it's not going to scratch anything up either. It's also important to check what this is rated for. And there's a lot of factors to roof racks because you got to take into account how much your crossbars can handle, your tower, and your fit kit. And not only that, you need to find out what your roof is rated for too. So I'd recommend just checking each one of those requirements and then going from the lowest rated component. But we can get a few measurements. The first one I'm going to get is going to be the distance underneath our crossbar to your roof. And that's going to be just a little bit under 3.5 inches. So that should work with most clamp-on accessories. It's also important to note that if you do have some really bulky clamps, that actually might be kind of hard to reach though because you might not have a whole lot of room. Another thing to think about is going to be your sunroof. The vehicle we have today does have a sunroof. And if this really expands up or goes up, that could make contact with any of your clamp-on accessories, especially since that crossbar is right over that. The second measurement I want to get is going to be the total distance it sits up. So going from our roof again to the top of our crossbar is going to be 4.5 inches, which actually isn't that bad. It's pretty low profile, but again, I recommend just checking what the total height of your vehicle is, add your crossbars, and if you have any gear too, include that so you know what areas you can make it under. A spot to really think about would be a garage. And then the distance between our two crossbars, we're going to have a 32-inch crossbar spread. And that's really important to know because you need to know what type of gears you can get up here because different types of gear and accessories require different spreads. In my opinion, I think this is a really good fit on what we're getting today because one, this is looking pretty clean. I think what we have matches the aesthetic of our vehicle and is not too big or bulky and it doesn't stand out too much. And what I especially like about it is the custom fit we're getting. Because our roof does kind of slope down near the front, and not only that, the front of our roof is going to be a little bit wider than the back half. And the Yakima Roof Rack can actually accommodate for that, unlike a lot of other options out there. So really, this is going to be one of my top picks. Now that is going to reflect in the installation process a little bit, because it's not going to make things necessarily harder. It's just going to make things a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more tedious. But if you are wanting more of that custom fit, then I think this is going to be the best option for you. If you are curious to see what that installation process looks like, just stay tuned and we'll walk you through it. To start off the installation, we're going to lay everything out. So if you're this way from me, we're going to have our crossbar, and off to the side, we're going to have the towers along their end caps. On the other side, we're going to have our fit kits, and that's going to come with some additional hooks and clamps. And then we're going to have an included tool. And what I recommend grabbing is a tape measure, whatever you have on hand, and some masking tape to mark things out. Where I like to start is putting on your towers to your crossbar. The way you're going to do that is you're going to flip over your crossbar, and you're going to show the underside. And typically, you'll have a weather strip that runs across. Now, we don't have one on here because we use this for demonstration purposes. We just leave it off most times. You can take off this end cap by just lifting up on this tab and pulling it. Might have to wiggle a little bit. Set that to the side, and then you can line up this middle block with this T-channel. If you don't have this middle block already installed, it's pretty quick. All you have to do is line up that block with a bolt that's under here. The reason you can't see this bolt yet is because we have this plastic tab on the back. Pull on that tab, you'll hear it click, and then you'll see that bolt now. You just line up that bolt with this middle block and tighten it down loosely, because we want this to be able to slide into this channel. Now I'm actually going to flip this around so I can put both towers on from the same side. With that on, I'm just going to push to on the completely other side, and then I'll do the same thing with the second tower. If you still have this end cap on, all you have to do is squeeze on the side of it. That should pull right off. You probably already noticed we already have our rear crossbar on. The process between the two is going to be pretty much the same. There are going to be a few differences in measurements, which will be really distinguished in your instructions. So I'm going to go over this. So first I'm going to put this end cap back into place. And now I'm going to get my M1 measurement. And that's going to be the distance from one tower to another tower. And for your rear crossbar, this is going to be your M3 measurement. So I'm going to grab my tape. When we're getting these measurements, we want to make sure that this arrow is facing away from us, because it's going to really matter when we're getting our pitch and toe. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. Right now, a trick to getting that M1 measurement is just going from that center arrow and halving the number that you need and measuring from there. After, when you've gotten this measurement for one side, you can check the other side too. And then what I recommend doing is just going back again and checking the total distance from one tower to the second tower, just to make sure that matches what's in your instructions. Next, we're going to get our pitch and toe. And this is going to be labeled in your instructions as P1 and T1. For your rear crossbar, it's going to be labeled as T2 and P2. Now for the rear crossbar, you shouldn't have to make any adjustments because they should already be on the correct settings. The front one is where we're going to have to make our adjustments. And we're going to start with our pitch, or like I said, the P1. And you can find this in your instructions, and where we want this to sit is in the A section. That's going to be that line furthest away from us. So I'm going to go in here, loosen up that bolt, just a tad bit. Once that's loosened, I'm going to pull this towards me and try to line up that bolt. Once that's lined up, I can slightly tighten that down some. I just want it enough where it's not going to loosen up on me, because later on we might need to make some adjustments. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to do a similar thing with the toe. We're going to just loosen up this bolt, and we need this to be in the 1 position. The 1 position is going to be the one furthest away from us. So to do that, a trick you can do is just by grabbing your base and installing that with this cutout facing out, away from the center, putting that on, and then if you actually push the sides of this, you can actually push this into the correct spot. With that in the correct spot, we can tighten this one down the rest of the way. And then you can repeat that process on the other side. It's not a bad idea just to measure the distance between your towers once more, just to make sure nothing's shifted. And if they didn't, we can start putting it on top of our roof. And to do that, you want to make sure this is in the right orientation, making sure that this thicker side is facing forward and the thinner side facing behind us. And we're really just going to roughly place this where we need it to sit, and then we'll make some adjustments afterwards. We can start getting some measurements, and the first one I'm going to start off with is going to be our M2 measurement. That's going to be the distance from the top of our windshield to where the front of our tower sits. I'm going to have to make some adjustments. After when you've made your adjustments, and this is sitting in the right spot, then you repeat that process on the other side. With everything in place, we're going to grab our clamps. Now you're going to have 2 separate types of clamps. On the front side, we're actually going to have slightly shorter clamps, as you can see right here. And just make sure you have the correct ones for the correct bars. And we're going to come over here. We're going to open up our door and open up this access door in the back of the tower. And that's going to reach underneath here and grab underneath this bolt. Now if you can't get it to grab on to here, you're going to have to loosen this up some. You can do that with your included Allen key. With that loosened, now I can retry this. You have to grab on. You can check it just by pulling on it. And another thing you want to check is how this is sticking out. You want to make sure this has enough room so it can hook on to the gutter of your door frame. And now we can start tightening it back into place. The best way to tighten it down is by coming over to this bolt at the top. And starting with this is going to be your swing bolt. It's going to be the one that lowers the clamp. And what I'm aiming to do is really just to make contact with our vehicle. And then I'm going to come over to this longer one. That's going to be your drive bolt. And I'm going to tighten this into place. Now it is important, before we tighten this completely, if you are liking the way everything is fitting, you should probably tighten your tower the rest of the way to your crossbar. After when you've done that, then you can tighten these clamps the rest of the way down. When you've tightened your towers, we can complete this now. And the best way to do this is to tighten one side slightly, and then go to the other side, tighten that down enough where we're getting contact and a little bit of resistance, because if we tighten one side completely, it's going to pull too much and it's not going to give you an even fit. So after when you've gone back and forth, then you can come back over here and tighten this down the rest of the way. The way you'll know this is tightened is when this device starts to click. Just like that. And make sure you do that for both bolts. At this point, we can give it a good shake test to make sure it feels really secure, and if it does, you can start putting on your second crossbar. And that's going to be pretty much the same process. Now you're going to need to get your M4 measurement, and that's going to be the distance from the front of our front crossbar to the front of your rear crossbar. Everything after that is going to be the same. And once you get that installed, we'll just put our end caps back into place. And if you already checked your rear crossbar too, you can load it up with whatever gear you have and go take it on a ride. But that's just a look at the Yakima Roof Rack on top of our 2022 Honda CR-V. Thanks for watching.